host, Shari Criso, and here we are for another special, amazing episode of the My Baby Expert Show, totally dedicated to new and expectant parents to be able to educate you, inspire you, empower you, give you all the knowledge that you need to be able to make the best, healthiest, most informed decisions when it comes to yourself, your baby, your families, and tonight is no exception. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, again, my name is Shari Criso. I'm a certified nurse midwife, a board-certified lactation consultant, a parenting educator, the host of this TV show, and also a mom myself of two beautiful daughters. They're 10 and almost 8 years old. And for those of you who have never been here, we are part of an amazing community. We've been doing this for the past 19, 20 months, and there are just episode after episode after episode of incredible content where you can get the information that you really need to make those informed choices. Tonight is no exception. Tonight is a really special show, one that is very dear to my heart because personally, as a labor and delivery nurse and then as a midwife delivering over 600 babies, I was involved in many cord blood retrievals. And tonight's show is about cord blood banking, saving your baby's umbilical cord blood. Not only in a professional way was I involved with this with so many families, but personally I also stored my own two children's cord blood, and I am a big advocate of the whole process and making sure that parents really know their options and their choices before their baby is born, and you will learn more about that in a few minutes. So I want to welcome you to tonight's show, and I want to also invite you to stick with us for the entire show because there's so much content, all the questions that you're going to need or ever wanted to know about this particular topic, I promise you, will be answered in the next hour. We have an amazing guest with us tonight. She's a special guest, an expert, and actually a dear friend who has been supporting my local clients for years when it comes to their own decisions about cord blood banking. Her name is Jennie Fitzpatrick. She's from ViaCord, one of the leading companies in the country that does this, does stem cell collection and storage. And she's a clinical educator over there. She's been there for years and years. She'll tell you more about herself in a minute. And she's helped over 6,500 families make decisions about stem cell collection and storage. So without further ado, let's welcome Jennie to the show and let's get started. Hi, Jennie. Welcome. Welcome to the show. Nice to see you.
Thank you so much for having me tonight. It's my pleasure, and I'm excited to talk to all of your clients and your moms.
Awesome, Jennie. We're really excited to have you. And like I was saying to everybody before you came on, this is a topic that, I get questions about all the time. I was a certified nurse midwife for a very long time. I was a labor and delivery nurse, and then I was a midwife, and I personally did collections for people. And, I would answer questions all the time in my private clinical practice, but then in the store, in the retail store that I had the past 10 years, I got more questions than ever. I think people just, knew that I had the time to stand there and talk to them about it. And it was really obvious that they were getting so many different conflicting information about cord blood banking, not really sure whether they should do it, not do it, and a lot of misconceptions, and really some people just had no idea at all. And I just felt like this is something that a lot of people really need to hear about, and who could be a better person than Jennie, who's been so fan. Thank you for taking such good care of all of my clients for all this years.
Welcome. Thank you. It's a pleasure to work with every single one.
They're great people, aren't they?
They
really are great people. So, okay, so tonight, why don't you give us a little bit of your background and, how long you've been working with parents, and I know there's a lot of them that you've worked with and personally as well.
Yes, well, thank you for the wonderful introduction as well. What an important topic to talk about as well. And as you had mentioned, it's not something just for parents that have a baby on the way now, but maybe a year or two from now, if they've already had previous children, it's a great topic to learn more about as well. Myself, as you mentioned, I'm with ViaCord. I have been here since April of 2001.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
On my 11-year mark now.
Wow.
I've been fortunate to talk to thousands of parents during that time period and help about 6,500 parents go through the process of actually storing with ViaCord.
Wow.
So it's a big number, but it's been a pleasure to work with. I have a lot of families that I work with where they had come back for their second or third child, so it's always a pleasure to hear back from them as well. And things change over the years too. So even parents who banked first 5 years ago and then now 2 years ago, they will come back and they need to learn a little bit some new information for their next child as well because the stem cell industry just changes on a regular basis.
Yeah, it's such an expanding, changing field, right? We keep seeing new
Exactly.
technologies I know just from years and years ago when it first started, and just the number of diseases that were treatable then compared to now, and the process and the technology has changed so much. Yeah.
I always say that over my 11-year period, they've added about 50 diseases to the list of what we can treat just during that time period.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's amazing now that we're at 80 and more to come in the future.
Well, yeah, I
So
mean, the first time I ever thought about when I actually signed up to bank my first daughter's cord blood was 11 years ago. She
mhm.
just turned 10, so I was just getting pregnant at this point now and thinking about cord blood banking, and the list was definitely not what it is today. So I'm very glad I made that decision back then. Okay, so Jennie, there's so much that we need to get to tonight, and I know that we want to cover a lot of topics. So let's get on with the conversation here and start teaching everybody out there what they need to know. One of the things that I know that is the biggest question is what are cord blood stem cells to begin with? A lot of misconception about that. So could you explain that to us a little?
So it's the blood that remains in the umbilical cord after the delivery. So after the baby has been completely removed, you'll find that the cord has been clamped and cut at that point.
Hmm.
We collect the blood that's left inside of that umbilical cord.
Gotcha.
And
And
it's the
these and there's a lot of you always hear about things in the news when it comes to stem cell research, stem cells. This is not any kind of controversial stem cells like you've heard of, right?
That's correct. So this is the non-controversial from a baby's umbilical cord after the delivery,
Right.
completely after the delivery. That's
Awesome.
right.
Awesome.
Another bonus for the cord blood stem cells as well is that because they're from that baby, they're genetically 100% of a match to that baby themselves. So they're their own stem cells. So that's something that they have a perfect genetic match automatically.
Right. And so in that sense, we basically have one opportunity, right?
hmm
When a child is born, they have one opportunity at that moment after the delivery, before the placenta actually delivers, right? To be able to collect those stem cells that would be 100% identical match to that individual that they then can save for years and years and years if they should ever need it.
That is absolutely correct. So it's a one-time opportunity to do that collection. And
Okay.
of course, we need to make that decision beforehand. We can't make it on that same day. In
Yes.
most cases, sometimes we can make it that same day.
Yes.
We try to avoid that though. And so
Yes.
it's something that it's a decision that we need to make before the delivery itself. But yes, it's a one-time opportunity to do the collection.
Yeah, which is why it's so important to learn about this before you have your baby. It's not something, okay, well, I'll have the baby like other things of should I buy this product or that product. This is one of the important things you really want to research while you're pregnant.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. As
Excellent.
soon as it's checked off that to-do list, it should
Yeah.
be months in advance.
Speaking of that, when should somebody when they're pregnant start to look into it? How long does it take to get the information or to sign up?
The setup process, we actually recommend a gentle reminder time is before week 30 to
Mhm.
have everything set up. It gives us enough time to work with the parents to have them receive the collection materials that we would send to their home. They have those ready to go with their overnight bag.
Yep.
It also lets us reach out to their doctor beforehand
Yeah.
to let the doctor know specifically that the family does plan to do the collection.
Yep.
The At week 30, you still have about 10 weeks to go, but that can go by very quickly. And
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
things that we need to do to make sure that everything goes smoothly on the day of the delivery.
That third trimester just flies right by, doesn't it?
Totally flies
It
by.
seems to take forever to get there, and then you're like, what happened? It's coming up so fast. Yeah.
Especially if it's not your first. If it's your second or third, it goes
Oh,
by a breeze.
yeah. So let's go back. You were saying that the stem cells can treat about 80 diseases at this point, right? And
That's correct.
what are we talking about when we talk about these diseases that are treatable?
Sure. Well, on the list of 80, you'll currently find things like cancers, like leukemias, blood disorders, bone marrow disorders, immune system disorders, where there may not be a functioning immune system. There's so many more that are in the research stages, but everything that's not in the research stages is listed on that 80 diseases that we currently can treat. Other things that are going to be in the research stages right now are juvenile diabetes, cerebral palsy.
Mm.
Those are things that are in clinical trial stages right now. So there's more than the 80 that we potentially can treat. We just haven't reached that point just yet that we can add them on officially.
Yeah. What I've always thought it's just so amazing is that, because when you look at even just the last decade of where we've come in the last decade, where will we be 10 years from now? And so, there may be things on the list that, there may be other types of cancers that we are not even thinking about. This is sort of like, taking a chance that, I'm going to do whatever I can to hopefully give my child what they may need later on.
Absolutely. And so that's something that I mentioned earlier when I talked to parents who have had a child before and they're back with another child. Things have changed even within that 5-year period for those parents, where we can now say you have
Mhm.
a value that's even greater than when you first banked because now we have developed more uses or different uses for those
Yes.
cord blood cells that you banked 5 years ago.
How many transplants have they done to date, like globally, with umbilical stem cells?
There's been over 20,000 transplants to
Wow.
date.
Wow.
Um, Something that number continues to grow.
Hmm.
And as we add more to that list of treatable diseases and those things that are in the clinical trial stages, that number continues to grow rapidly now, year to year, versus when we first started back in 1993, things were a little bit slower to start off with because there was only about 5 diseases that we were treating back in 1993. So now with that list of 80, things grow much more quickly.
Okay, so now what are some of the options that parents have? Like, what are the different options when it comes to storing cord blood?
Mhm. Well, they have two options specifically to preserve the cord blood,
Hmm.
either to donate to a public bank or to preserve for their own family.
Hmm.
The third option would be to discard the unit as medical waste. It would not be available at any point in the future if it was discarded, but it is an option. So those would be the three options: public donation, private storage, or to discard at the time of the delivery. Um, with public donation, there are very few public donation centers that exist. There's about 3% of hospitals in the United States that actually accept donations. So it can be very, very difficult. And it can be a common misconception that it's easy to donate to hospital blood centers.
Yes.
And unfortunately, that can be false, where it can be very difficult. A lot of donations tend to happen during business hours, which can be very difficult to plan a delivery during
Yes.
Monday through Friday,
Yes.
9 to 5. And if they can't deliver during that time period, they're not able to actually do the collection.
Gotcha.
There's also a very critical application as far as for they need to, because there is an investment for the public donation center, they need to make sure that they are exclusive as far as for the donations that they do accept,
Hmm.
and the number of donations that they do accept.
Yeah.
It's also something that is not necessarily always available for the parents in the future. And I hear that from time to time that if they donate, that their unit would be available in the future. But that goes back to the fact that about 50% of the units that are actually given to the public bank are not actually processed.
Oh.
So there's
Hmm.
really no likelihood, no exact likelihood that you would receive your units back if ever needed in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear that a lot. People are saying, I'm not saving it, but I'm actually donating it. Would that be more beneficial if you were part of certain ethnic groups? Like there are certain, right? That if you belong to a certain minority groups or certain ethnic backgrounds, that's a common reason to donate because they don't have as much.
It's also, you could argue that that's actually a common reason to bank your own cord blood, because
Absolutely. Yeah.
it could be actually be, and that's one of the things that we talk a lot about with parents is the likelihood of actually finding a match, which can be very difficult when you have any mixture as far as for ethnic background between mom and dad.
Yeah.
It can be very, very difficult to find a match in a public donation.
Yeah.
But we talked about that one-time opportunity to do the collection with the private storage. You've guaranteed yourself that you have a perfect match for that child.
If genetically for that person it's an identical match, but for a sibling or a close family member, it's also a pretty good match as well.
Absolutely. So there's a 25% chance of a perfect match between full-blooded siblings. So a brother or sister of the child,
Hmm.
they have a 25% chance that they would have the same 6 HLA tissue type matches. And just a brief description is that we all have 6 different HLA markers. We gain 3 from mom and 3 from dad.
Mm-hmm.
So mom and dad actually both have a half match as well because
Mm-hmm.
they provided 3 out of their 6 to those children. So there's a 25% chance that there would be a 6 out of 6 match for the sibling. And there's also a 75% chance that there would be at least a 3 out of 6 match or a half match.
It's really amazing. So is this when we've seen and we've heard of stories where people have a child with leukemia and then decide to go on and have another baby to try to get that match?
Absolutely. And that's something that we work with a lot of families that are in that exact same situation where
Mm-hmm.
time may be perfect for them to have another child. They may have already been pregnant with another child and there's a diagnosis during that pregnancy. And we're just fortunate to collect that. And we have a program and we can talk a little bit further about that afterwards too if your viewers have some questions on our sibling connection program.
Yeah.
That's a case of need program that we supply our service for those families that have a child currently that is in need of a transplant.
Gotcha. Gotcha. To be able to store cells on another baby. Mm-hmm.
It's for
So
families that have a medical need today
yeah.
for that cord blood.
Yeah,
And it's through our sibling program.
that's fantastic. I think one of the things that sometimes when I bring up this topic, and even as we were promoting this show and talking about the show today, people say, well, I already had my baby. So, why it's not for me. I didn't store cord blood, and so I already had a baby. It's over. That's not necessarily true because first, knowing the information if you were to have another child in the future, right?
Absolutely. And this is a great conversation for girl talk as well.
Mhm.
You have a sister or a friend or a neighbor, a coworker. This tends to come up in conversation all the time. I have many, many dinner conversations
Yeah,
if I
I'm
go
sure.
as a dinner guest about cord blood storage.
Uh-huh.
And so it's a common conversation to have. And so they can be well informed whether it's for a future child for their own family or for a friend or family member that they can pass on information.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, so it's something to consider, and especially if you think you're having your last and final,
Hmm.
right? I have that
Not
conversation.
always the case.
Well, I have that conversation with clients all the time. They're having their fourth baby. They haven't stored cord blood at all with any of the three. They'll say things, and I'll bring it up, and they'll say, "Well, I didn't do it with any of the others." And I'm like, even more of a reason to do it this
Absolutely.
time, to think
Yep.
about doing it this time.
And I talk to a lot of parents in that exact same situation. They just may not have known about it for some reason during their first or second pregnancy. They may have elected not to. They may have been in the hospital and learned about it at the last minute and said,
Yep.
"Well, I'm going to do it for the next child."
Yes.
A lot of reasons, but we definitely would recommend if it is the last child specifically and it's a planned last child,
Yes.
certainly look into the program.
Yeah, definitely. I think we actually have a video that I wanted to show at this point of a family set in that particular case. The name of the family, right?
It's the Kermeyer
The
family. So
Kermeyer family. Okay, we're gonna take a minute and watch a video of an actual family discussing what we're talking about right now. We'll
perfect.
be right back.
I am Cheryl Kermeyer. This is my husband Randy, and my sons, Ryan is 9 years old and Jake is 4. We decided to look into cord blood banking when we were pregnant with our second child, Jake, in 2003. And we had heard a little bit about the science and some of the research. And so we wanted to see if it was something that would be right for our family. This is an insurance policy, a chance to get a perfect match of stem cells for our baby and possibly usable for our whole family. And when I spoke with somebody at Viacord, I think it really cemented my decision. She gave me a lot of confidence in the entire company. I think that's what made me realize that this was the company that I was going to trust my cord blood with. The more the research is advancing, chances are somebody in our family, their life is going to be changed by these stem cells. I'm really hoping that the information I can provide and by sharing our family story, it makes this decision easier for families, and it also will, increase awareness and ultimately cause more people to look into this, enroll in the program, and save their stem cells for their family.
Okay, great. That was really awesome to be able to see a family. She's expecting and she has 2 other children, and obviously, this is exactly what we were just discussing of whether or not it's an opportunity to really think about is this the time for me to start thinking about banking cord blood, even if I have never done it in the past?
That's correct.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about, all right, so we've made a decision. We know we want to do this. We're definitely interested. We know all the reasons why and how it can help. How do they get started? They're pregnant. There are a lot of companies out there, right? To choose
Are.
from. What are some of the things that somebody would look for? In your opinion, having been in this industry for a very long time, and as a mom yourself, what would you recommend to parents to look for when choosing a company, and what kind of questions should they be asking?
Absolutely. I think that's probably the number one question that I receive on a daily basis. Talk to friends, talk to your doctor. They may recommend a program as well, or a few companies, so that at least narrows down that search for you. So dig a little bit into, have they used those in transplant? Have they been successful? So out of those individuals that have used their cord blood, what's the success of those transplants that they've performed? That is a key criteria because it shows that the company has banked. They've also used those units in transplant, and they've had success with the way that they actually store the units as well.
So when somebody's making a decision, and I've heard this before too, oh, my doctor told me to find something close by. In case I
hmm
need my cells, I should use a local company. I should use someone who's down the street versus someone out of state. Is that true?
I would choose a company based on excellence, not on location.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely it's something that you want units that are transplant ready, but it really is the security of the laboratory. Is it backed up? Pick the company first versus the location of the company. So we act very, very quickly to make sure that we do collect and process those units 24 hours a day, and we process them right away. That's another key criteria to choose a company. Do they operate 24 hours a day around a baby's schedule?
Yes.
But the location of the center, when you need the unit in transplant,
Mm-hmm.
going to be transplant ready for you,
Mm-hmm.
we want to make sure that it's close to an international airport, just in case the family is international 10 to 15 years from now,
Yes.
and also that it's close domestically so that we can fly throughout the entire United States. But our medical staff will work with your medical staff to transport that in the appropriate time and an appropriate manner.
Yeah. So basically what'll happen is you'll bring your collection kit to the hospital, and
Mhm.
then your doctor or your midwife will do the collection at the time of delivery. And then what happens to the cord blood at that point?
Sure. So after the baby has been delivered and the cord has been clamped and cut, they'll do the collection. They'll give the collection kit typically back to dad or to a partner. They're going to hang on to that at the hospital in
Mm-hmm.
their labor and delivery room. So it stays right with the parents.
Mm-hmm.
In cases such as with Viacord, the parents will call about 1 to 2 hours after the birth,
Mm-hmm.
know that they have delivered. We'll walk them through. We always say it's about a 4 minute phone call, and dad might be a little frantic at that point, but that's something that we work with them. But we do ask that they read the labels, make sure everything's labeled properly. Everything for our system is barcoded already and pre-labeled so that it has all of mom's information already on there. We just want to make sure it's accurate before the box is sealed.
Yes.
We'll seal the box while the dad is on the phone. It's then going to stay right with the parents, and we arrive typically within 4 to 5 hours after that through our medical courier service to pick up the unit.
So
And so
someone actually comes to the hospital to pick it up and take it to where it needs to go.
we're going to do that 24 hours a day. So regardless if the baby is born at 2 p.m. or 2 a.m., the process works exactly the
My baby's always delivered in the middle of the night, and not my own personal
same.
babies, but somehow my clients just love the middle of the
Yes,
night.
most babies do. So we work around the clock. We're on a baby schedule. And
Okay.
holidays as well. So if you're doing around a
Babies
holiday,
don't really care
no
about
problem.
nights and weekends and holidays, do they?
Even after they are born.
Even after, you're right. You're absolutely right. Oh my goodness. Okay, so what about the whole idea that there's the question comes up about if you were to save your own child's stem cells and then that child had leukemia or a different disease or some type of a disease, are those cells even safe to use?
A
Um,
great question. Very common question. That's something that you absolutely can use cord blood from a child themselves. It's called an autologous use.
mhm.
There are going to be specific cases where you cannot use a child's own cord blood. A transplant doctor may look to say, no, unfortunately, we cannot use that cord blood unit
Yes.
for this child.
Yes.
But there's many cases where you can and you have to use your child's own cord blood.
Yes.
Those clinical trials that I spoke about before, the juvenile diabetes and the cerebral palsy,
Yes.
are two where they mandate that the child must use their own cord blood
Mm.
in those clinical trials. So it gives you access to clinical trials like that to use that child's own cord blood as well.
Yeah.
We've also treated here a neuroblastoma, for instance,
Yeah.
a type of cancer with the child's own cord blood.
We just never know what life may bring us. And so thank God for those families that they've been able to have success and had the foresight to do and store their stem cells.
Absolutely. And I've talked to many of our families before, and I think we have a video to show afterwards too of a family who actually used their cord blood unit
Yeah.
and may not have ever thought that they would need to use that, but that's something that they banked and certainly very happy that they made that decision to bank.
Yeah, really great. Really, really great. You were saying, we were talking about the whole idea of separation, of storing them separately. I know there's also some separation in the way that you store the blood as well, right? You do 80%, 20%.
That's right. Yep. So we're going to break the unit into in the end, it's about the size of a smartphone. So if you can imagine about a BlackBerry size or an iPhone size, it looks very similar. I used to call it a cartridge, like an
Uh-huh.
audio cassette. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's something that it's split into about an 80%, 20% section. And the reason why we do that is that the 80% portion typically is large enough to use in transplant on its own. It is going to be up to the transplant doctor, I should state, as far as for how many stem cells that they do use. It's their final decision on when to use and how many cells to use out of the number that is totally available. But we do break it down into that 80-20 section for that purpose, so that we could use the 80%, save the 20%, because there is some future research right now into an expansion process
Hmm.
where we take that small 20% portion, multiply those cells, and potentially use that for another individual or that same individual for a second transplant in the future.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. And like we said, this is a long-term storage. So, the fact that you're preserving it for future possible technology is a really good idea. What happens if we don't get enough of a collection, or the collection's not what we think it should be?
Fortunately, it doesn't happen too often, but we do have what we call a cell count or a low cell count.
Hmm.
If a unit is under 100 million cells,
Hmm.
we do address that immediately with the family. That's the minimum marker that we want to collect. We want to collect more than 100 million cells of the
Hmm.
stem cell in order to use those properly in transplant as of today without any of the expansion technology.
Yeah.
If we collect less than 1%, 100 million cells, and in most cases, you'll find that this will not happen with a single birth.
Yeah.
It may happen with a multiple twins or triplets, that one of the children will fall below that minimum requirement. We'll address it immediately with the family. They are not charged for the service if we cannot continue, because that would be a medical need as far as for why we can't continue in the process.
Gotcha, gotcha. And I think that's a really good thing. And I'm going to just say that personally for myself, just knowing that, if it was not a good collection, I wouldn't want to be paying for storage on a collection that was not going to be useful.
Hmm.
So
Absolutely.
that's a great thing.
Very ethical, and we want to make sure that parents feel comfortable with that decision.
Yeah. One really important issue that does come up is the whole idea of, and this is something that I'm learning about too, is the whole idea of, when we want to delay cord clamping. Okay.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is, when a baby's born, being able to wait until the cord stops pulsating to be able to allow as much of the blood to go into the baby, to increase iron stores, to allow the baby to let that happen before you just clamp. And this is more of a midwifery practice in a lot of cases than in the regular medical community. But this is a question that comes up frequently. People think that they just cannot store cord blood if this was to take place. And I'm recently finding out that's not the case, and very happy to hear that. So could you explain that a little bit more to us?
Absolutely. So the good news is that you still you can wait until you actually the cord can pulsate. Then you can clamp and cut. So it's really up to the medical professional that's doing the delivery and the parents to make that decision as far as for when they clamp and cut that umbilical cord.
Hmm.
Um, as I mentioned before, we're going to check to make sure that we meet that minimum requirement of 100 million cells. but you absolutely can make that decision on your own as far as for when you clamp and cut the cord. In the majority of cases, we do find that the doctors will clamp and cut the cord immediately after the birth
Hmm.
for the majority of deliveries, but we do have parents, and we have a wide variety of delivery types. We have C-section, we have natural deliveries in hospitals, we have birth centers, we have home deliveries. We've had many individuals actually collect the cord blood. We can
Yes.
do all sorts of different types of
So it
deliveries.
doesn't
And
matter what type of delivery you have, you can actually do this no matter what.
that is correct. One of the key criteria when you are experiencing a C-section, for example, if you know it's going to be a planned C-section,
Hmm.
for specifically as far as for delivery types, ask to make sure that there's a sterile collection kit, though.
Yep.
It's a key criteria that we want to make sure that it's a safe collection kit.
Yes.
And that's a critical thing, especially if there's a planned or an unplanned C-section. If you're high risk at all, there may be that chance for a C-section, and we want to use sterile materials to do that collection.
Absolutely. 'Cause it's going to be going on to the sterile field there. You want to make sure you can bring it on and
Excellent.
get a quick collection.
Mhm.
Absolutely. I remember doing that. Scrubbing it in the C-sections there. That was a long time ago for me. Why don't we watch a video now again? Okay, this is the Patrick family, and they're the family that we talked about where they use their stem cells in a transplant, right? Very cool video. Let's take a look at it.
This is my wife Amber and our youngest daughter Trinity, and our oldest Paris, and this is Taylor.
Taylor got sick shortly a year after her first birthday, and she started developing a rash in her diaper area. Then it started spreading over her body. And then we found out it was leukemia.
We heard about Viacord through our oncologist, or through Taylor's oncologist.
Told us, there's this new thing out where we take the umbilical cord blood and we freeze it and we can use it as a transplant. We were talking about having a third child, hoping for a boy. And he said that we could use the cord blood from her umbilical cord and freeze it, and that if Taylor ever needed a second transplant, then that would help.
We decided to store Trinity's cord blood, and on the off chance that we would need it, and it turns out we did. They made it very easy for us to store the cord blood. They made it easy for us to retrieve the cord blood. The process they used to store it went so beautifully that they had twice as many cells as they thought they were actually going to get out of the batch of cord blood. Everything about it was just went perfect.
When Taylor relapsed this last time, they gave us less than a 20% chance of survival. After we did the cord blood transplant, she was given less than a 10% chance of relapsing again. Now that we're at 14 months, they're telling us that it's less than a 5% chance that she'll ever be sick again. The best time to find out about cord blood preservation, I think, is if you're gonna plan a family. Definitely, it should be in all the books that you read about learning to plan a family or what you've got to do to plan a family. It should be in there.
If we wouldn't have had their services, I don't know where we would be. I don't know where we would be, and I don't want to think about it too terribly much. Now that Taylor's healthy, every little thing that happens in her life it's like the first time again. It's like when she's an infant and she took her first steps. Now it's, oh look, she can run again. We're so happy she can run, or she can jump and do things that she could never do. Without Viacord, Taylor's cord blood transplant wouldn't have happened. And to go from a 20% chance of survival to a 5% chance of her ever getting sick again is entirely Viacord's doing, entirely. Without that, I don't know where we would be.
Okay, great. Wow, really, it just kind of brings it all together. And when you see the personalness of somebody who's actually been through it, I always talk about, and I think they said it in the other video, about how, stem cells are really like an insurance policy, and I always thought of it like let it be the biggest waste I've ever spent. You do it to hopefully never have to look at it again. And then you're happy that you never had to use it. But if you ever did need to use it, it's one of those things where you have to spend every penny you had to have it. I know that, we look at life, we'll get life insurance to protect our children. And at the end of the year, we don't sit back and go, look at all that money I wasted and I never even got to use it. You're like, that's good. Glad it was a big waste. It's sort of like that, but in even more so, because with an insurance policy, what you're getting is money. What you're getting here is another chance, and so it's very different. And but people feel, and I know there's a lot of misconceptions about what is the cost, because I've heard ranges and I'm like, no, it's not as much as they think it is. I mean, not to underestimate people, have difficulty with the cost at times, and I know that you guys do all kinds of payment plans and things like that. But let's talk a little bit about what typically this does cost, so that we can alleviate some of the myths out there.
Absolutely. Well, I think my most recent misconception was $10,000.
Yes.
And so I've definitely heard that before. It happens from time to time. I've also heard where they believe that the service fee is every single year.
Yes.
Versus an storage. So you'll expect a cord blood company to be between $2,000 to $3,000 for the first year service fee, depending again on which products that you do pick. Whether you do cord blood only or cord blood with cord tissue.
Yes.
So it's a selection that you have the opportunity to customize, but typically between $2,000 to $3,000. Expect a variety of different payment options.
Yes.
To break it down over a year's period. If you want to do that payment all at one time, it tends to be the lowest cost when you do it all at a pay in full option.
Yes.
But we have lots of options, and most companies will have lots of options to break it out over a 6-month or a 12-month. I know. We also provide a 48-month option, so you can break it up over a period of time and pay it off slowly and choose to pay it off faster. You can start with a 48-month plan, pay it off over 6 months if you have the ability to do so in the future.
Yeah. And then after that, you're not paying that same fee every year for 25 years.
That is correct. So no service fee, just a one-time service fee. And also I like to point out too that we don't start any charges until after we know that we've received and processed the cord blood units. So no deposits. It's not something that you need to pay anything in advance, and you shouldn't pay anything in advance for a product that hasn't been processed at that point. We want to make sure that we meet the minimum requirements, that your unit has arrived, that the delivery went well. Then we'll go ahead and process that, usually 3 to 4 days after we've received everything. We'll have a card on file, and it will just charge for every month for 12 months or all at one time. But that's certainly something that you have an annual fee thereafter between $100 to $200, depending upon, again, which products that you do select.
Gotcha. Now, would the hospitals have these kits available? I mean, like if you were to decide to do this last minute?
In most cases, yes, I always do. I encourage parents not to wait until the last minute, but that's something that it happens. Parents sometimes, and again, it's not going to happen too often. Parents often worry that they're going to forget their collection kit at home. We do that on purpose. We make sure that hospitals do have a stack of collection kits from time to time.
Yes.
We do recommend, though, to use those ones that are customized in advance for you. It makes it much easier for dad or a partner to go through that phone call with materials that are already pre-customized for that family. The barcode's there. The security measures are already there in place to have everything customized for that family. But you absolutely have the opportunity. And if the hospital does not have a collection kit, companies like Viacord, we work 24 hours a day. I just had a mom enrolled today while in labor. The hospital didn't have kits, and we were able to fly one in.
I will vouch for that, because one of my clients about a year and a half ago, she went into labor, decided while she was in labor, I really want to do it. I changed my mind and called me and said, "Can you help me get in touch with Jennie?
I remember that one actually."
And you guys were amazing. You got her the kit and she got her collection. And so we don't encourage you to do this, but it is possible.
But it happens.
And
it happens.
I and she were very appreciative of you guys coming to the rescue in that particular case. So that was really great. There's one other thing that I know that people don't know a lot about, and that's engraftment. And explain that to us too.
So engraftment is really when the cord blood transplant works. So
Mhm.
when we use cord blood in transplant, we're going to insert those into the body. Those stem cells have the ability to hone in on the portion of the body that needs repair.
Mm.
Engraftment means is that healthy cells have begun to be produced. And so we're producing healthy cells, whether it's part of the white blood system or the red blood cells, bone marrow stem cells, anything that needs to be replenished or reproduced. When we see those new cells being produced, that means engraftment has occurred.
Yeah.
And we want to see those numbers increase on a daily basis right after that transplant.
Yeah.
And that goes into the success of the transplant itself.
Fantastic. Fantastic. It's really great. You guys keep track of all these things. You have all the data there. And so that parents can really see. I mean, it's so many years later now. We've seen, like you said, with 20,000 transplants later, how
Yep.
exciting this whole field is and how much it is really growing. And really, you know, when we talk about it is, it can seem expensive. For anybody who's thinking that that's a lot of money, okay, then all you need to do is wait for next month when the cloth diapering DVD comes out. If you want to save, if you want to save money for your and spend it on your cord blood stem cell collection, we will show you how to save that kind of money in your diapers. There you go, right?
Love it. And as a mom myself, I'll be watching that one.
Yes, definitely, definitely. Um, Jenny, is there anything else that we should know about? Any other takeaways that we need to know, like before we end tonight? Any other questions that you're the one who answers these questions on a daily basis? This is a great opportunity.
Definitely. I would really just say make an informed decision.
Mhm.
Be very comfortable with your decision. Ask as many questions. I always hear parents say, I have a silly question. There is no silly question. I honestly have answered probably every single question that could be potentially asked. And I laugh at some and we all laugh together, and that's perfectly fine.
Yes.
Um, it's a big decision. You mentioned there is that investment. We want to make sure that parents feel comfortable with an investment as well.
Yes.
What the value is, what is this going to benefit my family in the future? What is it going to be the benefit for today and also for the future? And
Yeah.
one of the things that I like to let parents know is that this is a long-term relationship. We have something that's going to be here for quite some time.
Yes.
Psych does an excellent job at updating parents on a regular basis on clinical trials. One of the things I'm extremely proud about. We talked about that juvenile diabetes study.
Mhm.
As a mom myself, I received the memo, and you probably received the memo
Yes.
yourself, Sherry, that
Yes.
we have a clinical trial that we're aware of. So we sent out a letter to every single parent who had actually banked with Viacord over the course of time
Yeah.
and said, we've heard about this clinical trial. We want you to know about it as well, just in case you have a child that has juvenile diabetes.
Yes.
Here's the criteria. Call down to see if you're eligible if you have a child with juvenile diabetes. So that's something that I'm extremely proud of, just to be part of here and to have my own children banked here,
Yeah.
that I'm up to date with those clinical trials. We do a great blog, for instance, and we talk about things that aren't just cord blood related, but parenting related as well. We're
Yeah.
extremely dedicated to the health of both mom and the baby during the delivery and after as well.
Yeah. No, I think you guys have a fantastic company. I've really enjoyed working with you over the years, you know, from my local clients and now to my extended family out here, and to be able to bring this information. And Jenny, it was just so fabulous. You're such a wealth of knowledge after so many thousands of families and parents. Like you said, you've probably heard every question there ever was. And
I get stumped every now and then, but not
I'm sure
too
you
often.
get your surprises every day, but you know, I know that this is going to be so helpful for so many to be able to watch, to replay, to use, to take notes. And I would recommend that you go back, take some notes, listen to what Jenny said. Jenny had really like incredible advice for us as to the questions to ask, what to look for when making a decision of who you're going to do it with, and if you're going to do it at all, and why you would consider it. Take those notes, do your research, and like everything else that we always discuss here on the show, it's about information, education, you know, and empowering parents to make choices that are good for their family. It's not for everyone, but we should all have the knowledge.
Absolutely, definitely. And if anyone has any questions, you are
Yes.
welcome to reach out to me directly.
Yes.
My name again is Jennie Fitzpatrick. You can dial me directly at 617-914-3672. And we'll have that information probably on the video as well.
Yep.
Email, if it works better for you. I'm always on email. It's Fitzpatrick, Fitz Patrick,
Mhm.
at viacord.com.
Yeah, and you will actually get Jennie on the phone.
Well,
You can actually
but
speak to
all the
Jennie.
time.
Yeah, you can actually speak to Jennie directly, and everyone who does really definitely come back and they're very happy. So, Jennie, this was a wonderful, wonderful show. Thank you so much. I hope we can have you back again to talk a little bit more. Maybe we'll have some families on with us next time who've gone through the experience themselves. But this was extremely helpful, and I really, really appreciate your time, and I know everyone else does as well.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. It was my pleasure.
Thank you for all the great work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Have a great night. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Wow. Oh, are you as impressed with the amount of information that you just received as I am? I could tell you that, like we said, this technology changes year after year after year. And what a difference from 10 years ago when I first stored my own baby's cord blood. I learn something every year, something new, something changes, and that's because we keep advancing this whole process. And so I am so pleased that we did this show tonight. I hope that you enjoyed it. Jennie was fantastic. Did you all love Jennie? Jennie was great. Big hand for Jennie. Yay! Congratulations. Great job. And we will definitely have her back again. And again, thank you for watching tonight. Did you guys all enjoy it? Did you have a good time? Did you have as much fun as I did? I love spending time with all of you, and especially when we get to talk about ways to improve our lives, learn more about what our options are, and make choices that really come from our highest place so that we can feel good about our decisions as we move forward into parenting. Go kiss your babies, hug your babies, enjoy yourself, have a wonderful night,